So this little bridge is over Beecher's Creek in the town of Edinburgh, down in Saratoga County. What's that? All right. You know, unlike the J-covered bridge, this wasn't built by by the town or the county as a public road. This was built by a farmer named Arid Copeland, and his farm property was divided by Beecher's Creek, and he needed a way for his cows to get back and forth across the creek, and so he built this little simple, what's called a queen post truss bridge that was covered, today it's been, since this was taken, it's been restored by the town. It's now got a little park and recreational area developed around it, and like the J-covered bridge, it's an attraction for residents and visitors alike. The other covered bridge, covered bridges are something we feel great nostalgia for, which only got worse or better, I should say, after the book and the movie, The Bridges of Madison County, I want to say. And, it's, for instance, one of the great attractions of going to Vermont and looking at covered bridges and so on. And I think that's where the bridge over the Lachute River, built in 1994, a wooden covered bridge, I think that it comes out of that era. So this is not a historic bridge, but it will be someday, right? And before we leave wood entirely, this is a bridge built over the outlet of Eagle Lake down near Blue Mountain Lake. And this is actually a steel beam bridge built about 1895, I think, or 1891. And it was William West Durant, who built this bridge in memory of his father, built a lot of the great camps in the central Adirondacks, places like Sagamore and Uncas and Pine Knot. And everything he did was rusticized and had, so even this bridge, which is a steel beam bridge, he wanted to make it rustic and to appear like the structural elements of the bridge were made out of wood. And so you get that faux arch adornment of the bridge there. It's very beautiful, and it's still there and pretty well taken care of. And if you ever go on there's a lovely little boat cruise that you can take out of Blue Mountain Lake, and it takes you up under this bridge, and you can see it that way. So when we get to the next era in bridge building, which is about building bridges out of iron and steel, this becomes a tremendously wonderful material for making bridges, because you can make them, first of all, you can manufacture them to very high standards. You can make them, they're lighter, they're stronger, they're longer, and this kind of changes everything. And during this period of the last quarter of the 19th century, there's a lot of innovation that goes on among bridge engineers to figure out how best to use this marvelous material. And so this is a chart that shows a lot of the different patented bridge designs that were developed. And for about 25 years, there's lots of things going on. By the time you get to about 1910, the best of these have risen to the top of the heap, and other things have sort of fallen by the wayside. And again, one of the things that's changed is, instead of like the wooden bridges and the stone bridges, instead of being bridges made by local people of local materials, these are now made sometimes quite far away. And bridge manufacturing companies pop up all over the place. There were quite a few in New York, including one in Horseheads, New York, in central New York. This is the King Iron Bridge Company in Cleveland, Ohio. This was one of the bigger ones, and they had manufacturing plants outside of Ohio as well. And so, the way it worked is the bridge companies had representatives, like salespeople, that would go all around the United States selling bridges. If your town was thinking about building a new bridge, the bridge companies would come and make a pitch to the town and make a proposal, And in the records, there's a record of this when the towns of Ausable and Chesterfield build the swing bridge over the Ausable, which was built by the same company, the Berlin Iron Bridge Company. And so there were salespeople that would sell you the bridges, and then they would be manufactured right to your specifications in indoor shop facilities like this. They were meant to be partially assembled, sent to your site in pieces, and then erected on site, putting together the larger pieces with big pins. And these early iron bridges were called pin-connected bridges. And the companies would send bridge construction crews with the parts up to the site. Not unlike the Stone Arch Bridge, they would erect scaffolding in the river, and they would put the pieces together, because this truss does not have all of its strength until the very last piece is put into place. And when the last piece was put into place, the wooden framework could be removed. And so this is how they were built. That's not an Adirondack site, but it shows a bridge under construction. And so, and the first generation of iron bridges were made out of wrought iron and cast iron. And the builders or the designers understood So, where was I? So anyway, so they were initially working with cast and wrought iron because they understood that these two properties. So, cast iron had great properties if it was in compression, and wrought iron had great properties if it was in tension. And a truss like this, some of those pieces are in tension and some are compression, and the designers understood that wherever there was tension in the truss, it would be made out of wrought iron, and wherever there was compression in the truss, it would be made out of cast iron. And so that was the first couple of decades prior to the creation of steel. That's how bridges were made. And so this is the upper bridge in Keysville, 1878, shown here in a wonderful historic photograph looking down over the site. More or less how it looks today without the closed signs. This was built by a company in Milton, Pennsylvania called the Murray Dougal and Company, and it turns out, I can't remember if there's another slide. It turns out this is the only surviving bridge that this company built, and it's one of only about 75 wrought and cast iron bridges in the entire United States. And it's also the oldest, this is called a Pratt through truss because of the designer and the patentee, and it's also the oldest Pratt through truss in New York State. So it's very rare, and and I think it's no wonder that people are fighting so hard for its preservation, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Some of you in the room remember when it was closed, not this time, but back in the 80s. And when it was closed in the 80s, Jim Finnegan was mayor. And Jim Finnegan, as you remember, was a great believer in the village of Keysville and rallied a lot of support around the preservation of the bridge and eventually found some federal money to fix it up and to reopen it. But when it was closed, it attracted the attention of the Historic American Engineering Record, which I've mentioned before. And this man here on the right is Eric Deloney, who was the chief of the Historic American Engineering Record, who actually came to Keysville with his field crews. And we invited students from the University of Vermont for Preservation Program to do a whole workshop around documenting and understanding the bridge, which are shown here. The other great thing that came out of all of the excitement around the preservation of the bridge back in the 80s is, anybody recognize who this is in the photo? So this is Art and Irene Cumber, who lived in Clintonville. And Art Cumber came to me one day. He goes, "Steve, I got a whole bunch of stuff up in my attic, and I think I got the contracts and the drawings for the upper bridge." And sure enough, he did. How they ended up in his attic, I don't know. And there they are. This is the contract between Murray Dougall and Company and the towns of Chesterfield and Ausable, showing the specifications of the bridge and the cost, and attached to it were line drawings and wonderful document. And we took him down to Albany, where the Department of Transportation wanted to honor the discovery and copy them. And I don't know what became of these. I think their son, whose name is also Art, may have them. But anyway, that's for the Anderson Falls folks. That would be worth trying to acquire. These are very rare documents, and have lots of local importance. And then about the same time, again, thanks to Jim and the work of others, the bridge was, the upper bridge was fixed up, and all three of Keysville's bridges, two of which we've only talked about, two of them were dedicated to something called a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark, which is a designation they share with the Brooklyn Bridge and the Erie Canal and the Golden Gate Bridge. And it's not because any one of our bridges compares to the Brooklyn Bridge, but it's because we have three of them in a very short section of river that all represent distinctly different engineering solutions to crossing the river. And this is the dedication ceremony. What is that, 1989 or something? So more iron bridges. This is another one we all know and love, the crossing over the Ausable River in Ausable Chasm. This dates from about 1890, maybe 1900. This is what's called a Pratt pony truss bridge because the height of the trusses is lower and there isn't any cross pieces across the tops of the trusses. And these are made for shorter crossings. You all know this is a two-span bridge, and it shows up in lots of postcards and photographs of Ausable Chasm, including this one there, including this one looking back toward it in the distance. And that's what I want to say about this. There's a great, it's no accident that on this bridge, oops, wrong direction here, that on this bridge there's a sidewalk on the downstream side of the bridge, because that was very intentionally built so that people that were coming to Ausable Chasm to see the marvelous natural wonder that it is could walk out onto this bridge and look down out at Rainbow Falls and see, depending on the time of year, the churning water, the rainbows that you can see practically every day there. And a writer around the turn of the last century said something like, let's see, something like, you know, I can't think of another view in America that compares to this one, or something like that. A little hyperbole, but you know, most of us have stood in this spot, and it is an incredibly powerful, beautiful place. And I think one of the arguments for rehabilitating and opening this bridge is because it allows residents and visitors alike to stand in that very powerful spot and to say, I love this place, and I'm awestruck, and that's, I think that's worth a lot. And so it is, I think it is connected to tourism and pride and all the things that I think we care about. Currently, as most of you know, this is closed. Other iron bridges, this is one over the Ausable between Keene Valley and St. Hubert's. It's a privately owned bridge dating from about 1900. And this, we're going to see now 3 bridges that were moved from their original locations. Again, because people were really, you know, this was an era when people didn't throw things away. This bridge, which was, I can't remember where it was located, but it became redundant or obsolete in its original location. The county put out a notice saying who would like to purchase this bridge. Someone bought it, they took the pins out, took it apart, shipped it in the neck over 2 towns over, reassembled it, and it served as crossing the river to get to some summer camps that are over there. Same thing happened with this bridge. This is also from about 1900. This was located somewhere else in Essex County, taken apart, reassembled to get across to some other summer camps here. This is also the town of Keene. This bridge is actually still here. This is the old, the acid plant that was part of the J&J Rogers Company. And if you go up on that road past the elementary school in Ausable Forks and keep going as if you're going into the acres the back way, this bridge is still there. And it was built not for highway road traffic, but it was built to carry a little narrow gauge railroad that I think was called the Goo-Goo. And it transported materials from the acid plant, the pulp mill, and the paper mill, and to get back and forth across the 2 sides of the river. And I believe this bridge is still there, at least last time I saw it. It's in very bad condition, but some of you maybe fished in here. The fishing's pretty good. And then this is in Keene. This is called the what is this called? The Walton Bridge. There we go. In 1890, this too was moved from another location. Some of you may have heard that there was a toll road between Black Brook and God, what was it called? Well, anyway, there was a toll road that ran through Black Brook. And the part of the toll road was a crossing across the wouldn't be the Ausable River, it must have been Palmer Brook, or was it the Ausable? No. Anyway, there's something that the toll road had to cross. This was the bridge that the Western Plank Road Company built across that stream or brook. And when it became obsolete there, they took it apart and reassembled it over the Ausable River in the town of Keene. And this is a very rare engineering design. This is something called a parabolic or lenticular truss bridge. Here's the patent drawings by a guy named William O. Douglas. And a company called the Berlin Iron Bridge Company in East Berlin, Connecticut, was the exclusive manufacturer of these bridges. They built about 500 of these, shipped them all over the country, and today only about 40 of them still survive. And here is one being constructed. And here is the Walton Bridge, which most recently had been used as a pedestrian bridge here, but even after it was closed, and then it was a great, I used to bring students from the Westport Central School Technology program to visit this and other Ausable River bridges, and here we are there. And then Irene, flooding from Irene came and just washed away the bridge, and it was gone in a flash. But there's a new crossing here. The town got some money to build a new crossing here so that could continue. The other parabolic or lenticular truss bridges in the Adirondacks is this much bigger one over the Sacandaga River in Hadley. This is in Saratoga County. And this was also closed for about 20 years. And we got involved in advocating for its preservation right as the county was about to demolish it. And and we were successful in convincing the town supervisor in Saratoga County to give us some